Welcome, welcome. I see the participant number ticking up. We are so excited about today's webinar about our annual benchmark. I'm gonna stall or riff for a few minutes while people are joining, and we actually have a tool to help us in this moment at the very beginning. Could we go ahead and launch the poll just to get everyone's brains warmed up today? So because we're talking about benchmarking, we wanted to ask a question at the start about sustainability maturity. So go ahead and answer the poll. How would you rate your company's current level of sustainability maturity? You don't have to be right. This is not graded, but just your perception of where your company is along your sustainability journey. The options are just getting started, developing, established, advanced, and leading. And while you're thinking about your answers to that, I wanted to give a huge shout out to our webinar sponsor, WPA. They have sponsored our whole 2025 webinar series, and we are really grateful for their support. And also, Hannah, do you want to say hi? We're co-presenting today.
Yeah, hello everybody. Good morning, good afternoon. We're very excited to have you with us for the Benchmark official launch today and dive into a bit of a tour. So thank you for responding to the poll. Like Allison said, there's no wrong answers. Wherever you are is a good place to be.
Totally. All right, let's leave the poll up for maybe 30 more seconds. So if you're wondering or trying to figure out where you're at, again, just your best guess is perfect. And I'm taking a look at the participants. I see a few more trickling in. So welcome. We have a poll launched. Okay, let's go ahead and end the poll so we can get started. So I think you should be able to see the results on the screen, but it sounds like we have most people identifying as developing, as well as some early stages, some established, some advanced, and that's great because PSC is here to support no matter where you are on your journey. So let's get into it. A bit about who you see on screen today. My name is Allison Reeser, and I am the Director of Sustainability and Innovation here at PSC. Hannah, do you want to introduce yourself?
Absolutely. Hannah Hintz, pleasure to be with you here today. I am a sustainability analyst at PSC, working on the benchmark and many of the projects and consulting with our members.
Indeed. So here's what we are going to go through today. We have some welcome and announcements, and then we're really going to introduce this new tool that PSC has, the annual benchmark assessment. We'll get into some impact action planning, and then as usual with all of our webinars, we will open it up to Q&A at the end. A quick note on the Q&A, if you would like to just say hello, if you have a funny comment, please feel free to use the chat feature. But at any time, if you have a question that you would like to ask, please hop over to the Q&A feature that you see on the bottom of Zoom instead. All right, so let's start with a little bit about the Pet Sustainability Coalition in case someone is new. This is your first webinar with us. We are a nonprofit and we are here to serve the pet industry towards positive environmental and social impact. We have about 200 members that we work with all along the supply chain and all over the world. We're really here to work towards a better future for pets, for people, and for planet. We love alliteration in the sustainability world, so we're happy to have those 3 Ps. And really, we're working towards a responsible industry transformation. A lot of the work that we do falls under these 3 gears that you see: the ingredients, packaging, and responsible business. And the way that we support the industry is first through sort of individualized one-on-one company support. That's where we serve as consultants. And 2, really facilitating the collaborative and coalition building aspects because we cannot tackle these problems alone. Our 2025 webinar series is very exciting. We're focused on answering the question, what matters most? And so we're trying to pick topics to help drive the most impactful strategies. So today, of course, we're going to be talking about PSC's annual benchmark, but upcoming on Friday, May 23rd, we have a webinar about plastic recovery. This is a big campaign that we will be doing in partnership with Repurpose Global. So come learn more about that. And then in June, we have another webinar on circularity, really focused on the waste hierarchy and designing for circularity. A few announcements before I pass it off to Hannah to really get into it. But we are going to be at Super Zoo in August, so hope to see you there. We are going to be having our happy hour at the House of Blues, which should be very, very fun. And I also wanted to mention that at Super Zoo, we will be featuring our PSC accredited top performers in our booth. And if you have questions about that, please feel free to reach out to us afterwards. And I said it before, but in case we have some newcomers, just some Zoom housekeeping, please use the Q&A feature on the bottom to ask questions, because that's how we will be facilitating the Q&A at the end. All right. So enough from me. Let's get into the benchmark. Over to you, Hannah.
Great. Very excited to announce a new tool from the Pet Sustainability Coalition, the annual benchmark assessment. Benchmarking is a powerful tool that provides organizations with a clear framework and practical best practices to assess and improve sustainability performance. And by participating in the PSC annual benchmark, you can expect to align with existing initiatives, enhance transparency, and drive competitive advantage that accelerates the transition to a more sustainable world for the entire industry, as well as your organization. Key areas of focus for the benchmark include goal setting, certifications, material and ingredient use, customers, value chain engagement, and looking at additional metrics that provide a standard of reference point to measure and compare and evaluate your sustainability efforts. So really the benchmark will help to determine if performance is meeting expectations. It'll help identify areas for improvement and guide decision-making. A quick preview on screen of what the survey looks like once you access it online. And diving into what the benchmark assessment is. It's a series of multiple choice and short answer questions, nothing scary, accessible via an online link. And these questions are expected to take about 30 to 60 minutes to complete. Our goal is to have members and anybody from the industry who would like to join us submit the benchmark annually to contribute to continuous improvement for your business and the industry and tracking that data. The benchmark can help your organization create focus and prioritization on sustainability efforts. And your submission, which we'll talk about a little more later, will result, if you're a member of PSC, in an action plan of key initiatives. Your contribution will also help PSC measure overall efforts and impact in the industry. And this all results in enhanced decision-making and a competitive advantage, as we've mentioned. So let's review the business case for benchmarking. Benchmarking in sustainability is essential to demonstrate a real commitment to responsible business practices. It can provide a clearer, data-driven picture of where your company stands. Benchmarking enables performance evaluation and prioritization by identifying strengths and gaps, helping you focus efforts where they matter most. And benchmarking promotes transparency and accountability, building trust with your employees, investors, and customers through credible, comparable reporting. It also supports risk management and compliance, potentially if you need to, by uncovering operational and regulatory risk early. Beyond this, benchmarking strengthens stakeholder engagement by facilitating meaningful dialogue throughout the process. And our goal really through the benchmark at PSC is to provide valuable industry insights to align with emerging trends, uncover opportunities for cost savings, and revenue growth making. It's a strategic tool to drive continuous improvement and competitive advantage for your organization and the industry. So what are the driving forces behind reporting and submitting to the benchmark? There's a spectrum of voluntary, semi-voluntary, and mandatory driving forces to reporting. PSC has a whole separate deck that dives into more detail here, so please reach out to discuss if you're more interested in that conversation. But from requirements increasing across the globe, such as EPR, extended producer responsibility, to anti-greenwashing and sustainability reporting requirements, to keeping focus on consumer demand. 58% surveyed through a Deloitte study in 2025 said consumers are demanding more sustainable products. Another driving force is stakeholders demanding sustainable practices and information sharing between business partners and amongst your supply chain. So we have a spectrum of driving forces of why you may be paying attention to more reporting. A little bit of technical background to the benchmark so you can understand how we developed it. The benchmark will plan to continue to evolve, however, is built off a strong foundation with the rigor of other frameworks that have come before us. The TCFD framework, the Task Force on Climate-Related Financial Disclosures, is the base, and the TCFD framework also fuels other reporting requirements that we see today, such as voluntary reporting through CDP, formerly the Carbon Disclosure Project, and those requirements of CSRD, the Corporate Sustainability Reporting Directive, which is reporting according to ESRS, to throw another acronym in, the European Sustainability Reporting Standards. So all this really says is we took a lens of interoperability in developing the benchmark. And our goals in this approach are to minimize the challenges of dual reporting or multiple reporting, bring awareness to leading sustainability actions and data points, and to monitor the guidance from the other frameworks and regulations that are out there produced by ISSB, EFRAG, and the European Commission, which are really leading these efforts to understand how those practices are developing and any emerging interpretations to be aware of. Again, happy to dive in a little bit more. I want to clarify, though, that by answering the benchmark, you are not aligning to these other regulatory frameworks. We are simply trying to find common themes across to report as a collective for the pet industry and gather insights. This slide demonstrates that we've also tried to keep our reporting simple and focused in line with recent developments in the reporting world. The 2025 CDP SME, which is small and medium enterprise, scoring methodology is here on screen as an example. And this streamlines sustainability reporting with simplified data requirements really tailored to smaller organizations or those just starting out on their journey, and encourages broader and more balanced environmental disclosure. Meanwhile, we've seen a lot of headlines out of the EU with the omnibus proposal, which also significantly eases sustainability reporting burdens for small businesses by postponing obligations, allowing time to determine a process, and also narrowing the scope to only largest companies. In line with what we've just discussed with CDP, also the omnibus proposes to reduce complexity. And so our aim is to make sustainability reporting more accessible, specifically in this benchmark, the questions that you're asking you, and to align proportionately with our members and data needs within the pet industry. So a quick review of why do it before we jump into a tour. The benchmark will help you know where your organization stands within the pet industry and sustainability efforts overall. It will aim to help you set your strategy. Importantly, it unlocks expert support from the PSC team and will support the industry change for the positive. So a preview here of our welcome page, which you will see upon signing in from the link. And then I want to give you an overview of how the benchmark assessment is set up. It contains 9 sections, which you'll see on screen here, ranging from basic company information to providing us some additional detail from what we have asked. I will dive in on the next slides to give you a bit of a deeper preview. So we start with section number 1, company information, and this section helps us understand your company's size, sector, and structure so that we may provide more relevant insights and benchmarking comparisons. The sustainability strategy, and I'm going to pause because I see a note about the slides looking a little pixelated and blurry. I'm not sure if that's something we can update in real time, but I'll pause for a moment. We, of course, are happy to share this deck, and you will have access to get into the sustainability assessment and see these sections for yourself immediately after or during the presentation if you wish. So I will dive back in. Our second section is sustainability strategy. Here we explore your company's sustainability commitments, goals, and reporting practices to identify where the Pet Sustainability Coalition can support your progress and help align with industry standards. We have an environmental reporting section, and here we're gathering information on how your company measures and manages environmental impact, including greenhouse gas emissions, GHG accounting, resource use, and really we hope to track industry-wide progress on these environmental reporting efforts and offer guidance on best practice. Materials and products. This section focuses on sustainability of your materials, packaging, and product design choices, really helping us tailor recommendations and understand what's happening across the industry for more responsible sourcing and production. Moving on.
Hannah, I'm going to pop in here and just refresh my screen to see.
Okay.
Sorry, everybody. You're seeing behind the scenes here.
Yes. Thank you for the flag. We've tested this, but you understand how those things go sometimes. But again, as Allison is refreshing her screen before we jump into the final sections, the benchmark is set up as a link. And as I said, it should be a short response, 30 to 60 minutes. However, you can dive into the benchmark, you can review the questions, you can start the questions and pause and log back in. So there is the ability to do it at your own pace and kind of look around as you wish. So I just saw a note that we think it might be a bandwidth issue. So thank you, technology. Always a fun challenge, but it looks like we're back up. Not sure if we're less blurry, but we've got some workarounds. So I am going to jump back in. All right, so next section is governance. We really want to understand how sustainability is embedded into your company's leadership and decision-making structures and how that supports stronger accountability and long-term impact and goals. We have a section on workforce, which covers employee related sustainability efforts such as diversity, well-being, and engagement. And our value chain section looks at your company's supply chain and partnerships to better understand how sustainability is integrated beyond your direct operations. And again, where PSC might start to help support you on responsible sourcing and deeper supplier collaboration. Our customer engagement section explores how the company communicates sustainability to customers and stakeholders and helps strengthen messaging, build trust, and drive meaningful impact in the pet industry. And then finally, we have a few final questions that allow you to provide some additional detail, to talk to us about hurdles and challenges you might be seeing, and any links or files of reporting you might want to share, as well as upcoming plans. So it gives you the flexibility to answer as much or as little as you would like. So Allison's jumping ahead here to a couple screenshots, albeit blurry, but this is what you'd see directly from the link as you log in today. I wanted to give you a viewpoint of what each of these sections look like and some of the questions. So as stated, here is our sustainability strategy question. It is multiple choice. And depending on your answer to some questions, it might unlock an additional question to dive deeper. But the way that the survey, the assessment is set up really streamlines your answers to be able to move through quickly based on your organization's efforts. One more preview of questions. This is from our workforce section. So you can see we're asking about initiatives and efforts, and simply multiple choice to choose what your organization may be participating in currently. We can skip over this slide and move on to our section for impact action and planning. We're going to launch another poll. Hopefully you will participate with us. And in the meantime, I'm going to pause and we'll check in on our technology here. This poll is really asking, what are some of the actions your company has taken? Please answer yes to any and all. It's interesting to see this in live time, so I'll give the poll a moment since we've got plenty of time in the webinar today. And as we're doing that, I'm going to keep an eye on chat. Hey. So it looks like, thank you all for answering. Almost half of those on the call today have dedicated resources for sustainability, which is really, really exciting to see. Understanding that can be varying levels, and we'll talk about that a little bit more in the upcoming minutes. But I see some have done competitive analysis, some have done greenhouse gas accounting, materiality assessments, great, and a solid number, a third, a public sustainability statement. So that is fantastic. It'll be interesting to revisit this at the end after we run through some impact action planning. Right. So diving right in, because our goal is to help you make impact and action plan for that. Let's talk about what happens after you submit the assessment. Again, a reminder, you can log in anytime, you can come back to it, but immediately upon submission, you'll receive a copy of your answers. So you'll have that, you can review with other staff if you'd like. And then with those answers, PSC's member engagement team will send you a suggested action plan if you are a member within 30 days, highlighting where PSC can best support your sustainability efforts. And again, we're going to dive into a bit more detail on what that action plan might look like later. And then as a member, we also are building into our process time to meet with you to review that action plan, discuss any challenges you might have, and dive into how PSC can support you. So as a reminder, in all this, sustainability is a journey worth starting and continuing. So wherever you are today is a great place to be. Just showing up and submitting is a wonderful start, and we hope to help support you moving through that journey. So the journey moving up through your maturity within sustainability, from perhaps compliance to value creation, is not a simple continuum. Rather, becoming a sustainable or a more sustainable business is a process. So as you move through the various stages and up to additional value creation, or perhaps someday even setting the competitive example, being a trailblazer, it really requires finding your starting point and then choosing those key opportunities along your path. So we have developed the benchmark to help find where are you today, where is your starting point, and then move on to foundational steps if you have not done those already. So those foundational steps are what we asked about in the poll and quiz here. So exciting to see that there are many things that you all can be proud of already. So number one is greenhouse gas accounting, looking at scopes 1 and 2 specifically. If you've already dove into scope 3 in your larger value chain, that is fantastic. But getting these baseline numbers around your emissions is really a foundational step to see where you can reduce and find cost efficiencies. Sustainability resourcing is important. You want to help create buy-in and build the business case to have people across departments focused on sustainability, and those leading the efforts really targeted and directed. So again, super exciting. 46% of you said you have dedicated resources for sustainability. A materiality assessment can be a great way to create prioritization and focus. So this is really looking at what topics are most material or most impactful to your business. And so it helps highlight impact, risk, and opportunities that you can help that will help you to support to create a more specified action plan on where those topics will impact the business most. A competitive analysis is another foundational action, looking at what are those businesses like yours doing around you, particularly within sustainability and green claims. And so this can be a great way to gain some insights, some motivation and inspiration around sustainability efforts, and see where you may have some gaps. And then a public sustainability statement. Notice we do say public, not just internal planning, we believe is a foundational step. So you can start to be accountable to those efforts and find direction of how sustainability strategy aligns with your business mission and goals. So we are going to dive into a preview of the action plan. And again, I'll pause to apologize. Looks like in the office we're having some bandwidth issues. So we look forward to sharing slides and getting you access to the assessment immediately. I will give a brief overview here. This is the action plan mentioned before that our members will receive after filling in the survey, and is really developed to help guide your next steps. We will outline key strengths as well as areas for improvement, and then look at your maturity stage. So in this example, which I love, for Reese's Raptopia, maybe a hand up, anybody that has a pet rat or has had in their life. We are diving into a company and looking at some of those foundational elements that we can start with right away, such as greenhouse gas accounting, and really using the benchmark to see where efforts are today and move into future efforts.
As much as I wish Reese's Ratopia was a real company, it is hypothetical.
Thank you for clarifying. Yay. Thanks, Pauline. The slides look better. So sorry. We should have done that previously. Okay. Great. So now that we can all see what's on screen, we can dive in a little bit more on this action plan, which is a current state evaluation. So some of the key strengths that we've highlighted for this non-real business is that sustainability is core to brand identity. So that really provides a wonderful platform and launching point for additional efforts. And this business has executive buy-in. So again, really strong to add on. Some areas for improvement that we've called out are establishing specific targets and strategy. So making sure all of that work and all of that buy-in is directed and targeted and can be measured. And also looking at future green claims and ensuring they are accurate and transparent. And so as stated, the maturity stage that we've established for this business is foundational. Again, a reminder, wherever you are is a good place to be, and we welcome you into this community. But there are some serious steps that can be taken after those foundational projects and reviews, if you will, have checked the box. We also plan to outline priority next steps. So with the benchmark, you can continue your journey and really hit the ground running with PSC support. So the specific actions for Research Ratopia are a green claims review, outlining the resources available for this. This is a project that PSC offers that outlines green claims best practices and will review what you have in the works or already published and offer recommendations for enhancement. We have a link here for some best practices that you can review on your own. And we will include a suggested timeline. So this one is within the next 2 months, really getting ahead of what is that messaging out in the market. We also wanted to include a section for who is accountable to make sure that this effort really leads through. And this can be something that we discuss and help collaborate with in that one-on-one meeting to review. Without going into too much detail, some of the other actions that we have suggested here are a materiality assessment, really hoping that leadership will help initiate, and other internal and external stakeholders, of course, will be involved because we want to hear from everyone when determining what is most important or impactful in those material topics. The GHG Scope 1 and 2 baseline is starting to look at those emissions. And so we'll, of course, want to include your finance team or anyone else working on that reporting and who might have access to utility data and an understanding of the overall scope of emissions. This as well is a PSC project that we can support you with. We have a webinar as well if you want to dive in today to reference, but we will make sure that we are including in our priority next steps, not just recommendations, but a number of pieces from our toolkit as well. So we wanted to take a moment to dive into a bit more detail about one of the consulting projects that the Pet Sustainability Coalition offers, which is diving deeper into target setting and developing a 3-year roadmap. So this is an opportunity to take your action plan and put it into clear sustainability goals with a plan and outline how to achieve them across operations and stakeholders. So some of the example deliverables that you might expect is a gap analysis between your current initiatives and your desired ambition, while we link those up and create time-bound targets and key data points to measure those targets and progress. And then, of course, help support collaboration within your teams to build those commitments. So happy to chat with anybody more that might be interested in that today and or diving deeper after that initial action plan is produced. I'm going to pass it over to Allison to talk about an upcoming report, an additional tool that I'm very excited about.
Sure. So far we in this presentation have really focused on kind of the benefit for you as an individual company to really take advantage of this tool. But there is another very exciting benefit, and that is just like we will have data to track our progress as an industry. And so we are going to be releasing a state of sustainability in the pet industry report, which we're going to capture a lot of the trends that we're seeing across the board in the pet product space. So highlighting collective progress, identifying opportunities for improvement in our industry, and then really supporting all of that by credible and data-backed sources. So while information that you submit through the benchmark is kept absolutely confidential, the benchmark will be one of the sources of trends that we use for this. So insights will be taken from sort of this aggregated and anonymized responses from the benchmark to help us understand really where are we collectively as an industry.
I'm seeing lots of love for that report, so I am equally excited. Just to highlight again what Allison said is we're really thrilled to have this data for the pet industry specifically through submissions of the benchmark, but want you to know your submissions will be discussed only with you. Highlighting again, anything that goes into that larger report will really be anonymized, and we're looking at overall numbers there.
Yes. All right, let's head over to our Q&A. We have some awesome questions already in the Q&A feature that we can start with, but everyone here, please feel free to drop your questions, not in the chat, but in the Q&A feature, and we will take a look. What I wanted to start with, Hannah, can you just reiterate, in case someone wasn't here at the beginning, how frequently companies should take the benchmark and how long it should take to complete?
Absolutely. So we have developed this as an annual benchmark. So we hope everybody will take it once a year. If you have not taken it yet, you are welcome to take it now or anytime in the upcoming month or so. There is no official deadline, although we would love to work with you on your action plan. So the sooner, the better. It will only take 30 to 60 minutes to complete. It's a very simple multiple choice questionnaire, and there is option to add in some additional detail as well as reference to some of your reports, etc. But hopefully it'll be fairly easy to respond. And if you log in and start to respond and maybe don't have all the answers up front, you can hold that and come back to it later after asking some more of the company on what those specifics might be. But we hope it's very straightforward and a simplified questionnaire for you.
Let's talk a little bit about how this benchmark that we have developed fits into the ecosystem of other things. There was one question about how does our benchmark compare to the B Corp assessment?
That is a wonderful question. So we have looked at the B Corp assessment in building what are the foundational elements or questions that we should ask. We also, of course, looked at B Corp as best practice, and especially now with their new release, what are the foundational pieces that are required to be in B Corp? How does that compare to sustainability maturity stage as we're looking at the efforts that you submit through the questionnaire? So it is not directly aligned, but the B Corp assessment and impact areas did inform the questions and data points that we are asking about.
And another key difference too is that our benchmark is not, you don't get a certification after completing the benchmark, like you get your B Corp certification, your stamp of approval. PSC still maintains our accreditation program, which is our stamp. And we do have one question in here about how does the benchmark relate to the PSC accreditation program. And I think we will probably have more clarity on this at the end of the year because we are taking a look at just, again, the ecosystem of things that PSC has created. But the core difference is that this benchmark is an annual assessment. We're hoping that every single PSC member takes it. We're hoping that people outside of our membership take it. And it's really for developing an action plan. And it will also help us identify companies that are a good fit for accreditation, which would be additional steps after that, including the third-party verification so that you're able to get that valid PSC accreditation.
Right. Allison, I just want to highlight as you're looking at more Q&A, I have put a link to the landing page on PSC's website, which outlines the benchmark assessment and gives you a direct link right there to dive in and start to take it today if you'd like, or look around.
Hannah, can you share more about how benchmarking, either in general or with this tool, really helps set a strategy?
Absolutely. I think, first of all, developing a benchmark by submitting this questionnaire to PSC is an action that demonstrates a commitment. And so it's kind of a step forward, if you will, for you and your organization to start looking at what sustainability efforts could you put in place? Where do you want to focus? And with the answers to those questions and putting them against how others have answered, what others are doing within sustainability in the pet industry can really help you develop a clearer picture of where your company's strengths are, what you might want to lean into, and some data about where your company stands amongst competitors. And so that all together with, of course, PSC's help in consulting, we hope will develop a plan to see where you stand today and get you to where you might want to be tomorrow and even look ahead to a few years down the road.
Great. And there was actually a follow-up on that question asking to share more about expert support from PSC. And I would love to answer that question because I'm really proud of the work that we've done to build out our internal team of experts. Hannah Hintz is one of those experts that provides that direct support to our companies. And we have more people on that team, and we're continuously learning and growing our expertise, and we're here to support the industry. We all come from various different backgrounds, and so I'm really proud to be on this team and able to contribute in that way. Did you want to add anything to that, Hannah?
No, we're just very excited to work with you all. Highlighting what Allison said, I think all of our different interest areas and backgrounds really contribute to the consulting that we can offer you. We're also continually looking at best practices and what's evolving within sustainability, and look forward to having those conversations in line with your efforts as well.
Great. Let's take a few more questions. I think there's one that's important to address here about what if I don't make pet products? Someone here is asking about what if they provide services to pet companies? Can they take the benchmark?
Yeah, great question. Absolutely, you can take the benchmark. Please take the benchmark. We have set up the questions so that they will be relevant to your business. And so if you answer, no, I do not make pet products, as a very direct example, it will not feed you additional questions about those products. So you can move on through to the next section and tell us about the efforts that are relevant to your business.
Sure. And then one that I see in the chat here too, asking about should the assessment be filled out by just one person in one sitting, or could it be filled out by multiple people?
Great. So we do ask that one person fill out the assessment so we don't have multiple or conflicting data. However, you are welcome to get help from your organization in that assessment. So when you log in up front, we're going to ask company name, some details that we had outlined, such as sector, number of employees, etc. And if you are a PSC member, we will also ask who is submitting the assessment, just so that we have a contact to go back to. However, you can pause the assessment at any time if you need to get additional information from others, and then bring that back in to your login and complete those questions.
Right. Great. Well, I think let's wrap up there. We got to most of our questions, and thank you so much, everyone, for submitting them.
Absolutely. Thank you for bearing with us through technical difficulties. We will, of course, have a follow-up, and this webinar recording will be available. But in the chat, as well as on screen here, you will see we have one more reminder, and then on screen, we will show you the URL and a QR code. But in the chat right now is the link to the assessment. Also, if you go to petsustainability.org and do a search for benchmark, that will pop up for you as well. So I'll leave it to Allison to close us out as we look forward. And thank you again so much for your time.
Great. We got a lot of exciting stuff going on. So I'm going to drop in the chat a link to our Plastic Recovery July event. Again, we have a webinar about that coming up on Friday the 23rd, I think. One more chance to get the link to the benchmark here. And of course, this will be available online. And I believe that is a wrap. Thank you so much, everybody.